let's introduce Tone Vase first. I know you're a Bitcoin maximalist. Tell the audience about your position in terms of Bitcoin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tone Vase. I run a pretty popular YouTube channel just under my name as Tone Vase. And I've been in Bitcoin for quite a while, since early 2013. Back in the early days, I saw the altcoins come up and found very tiny interest in some of them, thinking that there could be some use cases. But what I've seen over the last couple of years have gotten me going in a completely opposite direction. And my view is that Bitcoin pretty much is, I'm not going to say the only game in town, but the only useful innovation that I've seen in this space over the last 3 years.
And Julian Hosp, you're with 10x, so I'm assuming you're not a Bitcoin maximalist, but what's your position in terms of the cryptocurrency and whether or not Bitcoin will be the one left?
So I learned about Bitcoin actually in 2011. Back then I was a medical doctor. A patient of mine told me about it. I didn't see the potential. In 2014, my co-founder explained blockchain to me. Initially, I wanted to have a medical application for this, but then in 2015, I realized, okay, finance is going to be the solution at the moment, and maybe other applications going to come. I do agree that I think Bitcoin right now is really solving a problem. I think most other cryptocurrencies are not, but I think going forward, we're going to see many, many great solutions to problems that probably Bitcoin is still going to be an important game in town, but probably not the only game in town.
Tone, why do you think Bitcoin was created? What problem was it solving?
Bitcoin was created to solve a very specific problem of money. Decentralization is a very inefficient and a very expensive, I guess, technological tool. And this tool should only be used in cases of censorship. And what happens with our money is every single payment we ever make is pretty much censored other than physical cash. And the world is becoming more and more digital. The world is becoming more and more advanced in technology as the government tries to eliminate cash under the same premise that cash is very, very old and you want to go to digital payments. But then every single payment becomes censored. This inefficiency of a blockchain being decentralization makes sense when everything you have is censored and it's worth it. And that was the problem that Bitcoin was set to solve, and it's solving it really well. A lot of people don't like the fact that it's burning a lot of electricity, but that's what you have to do to create that censorship resistance and the unconfiscatability property of a digital asset. And smart contracts, on the other hand, aren't really at risk of censorship. So decentralizing your smart contracts don't really make much technological sense. It's just a very grossly inefficient database to do something that's not at risk of censorship.
Well, there are 1,800 altcoins essentially at this point. But let's talk about the history of it, the evolution of these altcoins, because there are different sorts of altcoins. There are the original altcoins back from I don't know when Litecoin came about, 2012, 2013. There were quite a few altcoins that were proof of work, similar to Bitcoin. And now we've seen the emergence of sort of ICO coins. You have a coin, right?
Yeah, the pay token.
Tell us about your token. Is it a way to raise funds, or is it a proof of work? Is it proof of stake?
I think most ICOs are created to raise funds. It's an alternative way that you don't have to do a VC round. We had traditional investments of 1.1 million prior to our ICO, but I think 99% of all ICOs are made to raise funds. Our token is a loyalty program. We have a card where people can put cryptocurrencies on and then spend these cryptocurrencies with a card. And so this token is like a loyalty program, like, I don't know, British Airways has their points, Miles & More has miles, United Airlines has their points and miles. So it's very similar, it's just decentralized. So it's transparent. Many airlines, loyalty programs, and so on are being blamed that they're just hyperinflating their currency, and so there it's completely transparent what's happening to that loyalty program.
So it's like Air Miles, but do you have your own blockchain? Is it? Or
it's an ERC20 token, so it builds on top of Ethereum.
And Tone Vase, what do you think about these tokens emerging mostly on Ethereum?
Well, I think Ethereum is, I really do not like Ethereum. I've been a huge critic of Ethereum even from before the token was launched, pretty much from conception of Ethereum, I've been against it. And again, in my conversations with lots of very smart blockchain developers, they're also seeing that Ethereum is not scalable. I think there's a huge regulatory problem with Ethereum that I believe it's a security. I called it a security from day one. It was obvious to me that it was a security. I think there has lots of problems, especially the conceptual problem that I mentioned earlier, like you don't need to decentralize smart contracts. It doesn't make any technological sense. So I think there's lots of problems on Ethereum. So anyone building their token on top of Ethereum has to pretty much make sure that they keep a history of every one of those transactions in their own local database. Because I'm sorry, you just can't trust Ethereum. You can't trust that Ethereum will be there tomorrow. I love Bitcoin, and it's possible that Bitcoin will not be there tomorrow, but if Bitcoin isn't there tomorrow, we just lose money. If Ethereum's not there tomorrow, you basically have an entire company built on top of it and you have no history of your transactions. So you need to maintain a copy of those transactions anyway. So then what's the point of Ethereum if you have to keep that backup regardless? So I don't really see that like building on top of Ethereum. I mean, it was an easy way for you to create an ERC-20, and I agree that it's just a way to basically raise funds. And I think the only innovation in all of these ICOs, it's not a technological innovation at all. It's just an innovation how to separate unqualified investors from their money, because every single company, whether it's in a new technology like crypto or in anything we've had before, or a physical business, your chances of success are very, very small. And that's why, you know, richer people and smarter people and accredited investors should be investing. The average person should stay away from speculation, and Ethereum just created this speculation.
That sounds a little bit like you're saying who should be who determines who's qualified or not qualified, and why should somebody with only $10,000 to their name, why should they be excluded from participating in markets?
Well, because it ends badly in the end, right? Because when things like BitConnect happen and a lot of these people just lose their money, then run to the government, wanting the government to do something, and then the regulation comes down even harder. So to actually prevent that, this is why you leave speculative investing to people with the speculative money to invest. Otherwise, what we have right now, to me, is basically everyone printing their own money in the form of an ICO. And I just don't see how the world benefits by that. This really could be a bigger bubble than the .com and the housing bubble combined, because this is global. And there's no age restriction. There's no any kind of restriction whatsoever. No geographical restriction. Everyone is just like piling in order to speculate on these ICOs. And clearly it's going to go into a bubble.
But Julian, okay, so Jay Clayton did speak this week. He's the chairman of the SEC, and he obviously is planning on having some actions against ICOs. But he did express concern about the state of the public markets in the U.S. You have all these massive companies like Uber that are private. They're not available to the public markets like during the .com days, or there haven't been many IPOs, and there are more and more share buybacks, so there's fewer shares available for the public. So are you experiencing that? I mean, there does seem, in my opinion, when I observe it, that there's a real demand to invest in things, but I'm not sure the fact that most ICOs don't offer equity, they just offer the opportunity to flip to a greater pool.
I guess many companies would offer equity if we could. For us, I mean, we tried to go a bit more of an aggressive route when we did our ICO last year, and we wanted to have some kind of participation of our users, but it's just, I think at the moment, the entire regulation market, I'm not sure if we're not going really off topic with this, but the entire regulation around ICO is just so uncertain, and it's just not clear. Europe doesn't have a definition of what a security token is. The SEC, and there was also a video online in an interview, it was clear that in theory anything could be an ICO, right? And I agree with you. Partly,
well,
I think your comparison of BitConnect to Ethereum is a very lame comparison, but I do agree that in theory, anything other than Bitcoin, there needs to be a reason on why this exists, right? So I guess fundraising if it was possible to do an ICO on equity, I would be very open to that. If there was a good way in order how you can structure your token and offer equity, and there's a legal connection, it not only promising a token holder that you own 0.001% of your equity, but actually making this legally viable, I do think a lot of companies would actually be open to that. It would just need the legal infrastructure at the moment.
Tone, what do you think? There's going to be some sort of global regulation allowing this sort of thing? It does seem like regulators are trying to come to some international agreement about this.
I mean, I don't really know what the regulators are thinking and doing, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a regulator, but even when Ethereum was being conceived, it was very clear to me that it's a security. And Jay Clayton made it also clear on his recent interview that it's a security. If your ICO is created by an enterprise, like a company, which in the case of Ethereum or any of these ICOs is, and then there is an expectation of profit. Like if someone is buying your token with an expectation of profit, it's pretty much a security. So I don't know why they're dragging their feet, because I think the regulation, whether an ICO is or isn't a security, it's always been there. It just, wasn't enforced in any way with the creation of Ethereum and similar tokens. And this idea that, well, we have this token, the people that buy this token have absolutely no rights, like the rights of a security holder of a publicly traded company. Therefore, by making it less good and giving less rights to the people holding something associated with our company, we are therefore not a security and don't have to be regulated. And I think that's kind of ridiculous. So I think the hammer is going to come down, and we'll see how bad.
In the last 3 minutes here, I want to turn to Bitcoin, because I guess you're saying that's going to be the last one standing. But Satoshi didn't envision. He thought that a 51% attack on Bitcoin, for example, would not happen because anybody who did that would then basically just be able to steal a Bitcoin that would go down in value. But now with futures and a way to bet against the price of Bitcoin, is that something that we could see in the future? Because we're starting to see some 51% attacks on bigger coins at the moment.
But not on Bitcoin. I think the 51% attacks, I mean, I do agree. I'm a big bull. If I had to invest, I guess a great question is always, which coin would you invest in if you had to put 100% of your assets into one coin?
Yeah.
And I would put 100% into Bitcoin if I had to invest in one thing. It's the most decentralized coin. I do think it has the highest likelihood of being here to stay. But Bitcoin also has a problem. People always think Bitcoin is rare. Bitcoin is not rare. Gold is by definition rare. Bitcoin, you can make one copy, one copy, one copy, one copy. So at the end, Bitcoin stays rare simply because people agree on it staying rare.
Yes.
The 51% attacks don't happen on Bitcoin. They happen on its clones, and righteously so. I actually posted an article on 51% attacks being possible on Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Gold. People laughed when we put out these articles because obviously the followers of these coins, they always try to support these coins, but they don't think rationally behind what's actually happening.
Tone, gold has been money for 5,000 years. Bitcoin has been money for the last 9 years. Is it going to stay around? Will there be a challenger? How do you know?
I don't think there'll be a challenger. Just a brief comment, Bitcoin, by the way, is not at risk of any of this regulation that could hit the ICOs, because again, Bitcoin doesn't have an entity. Satoshi Nakamoto is also an invisible person, never been found. So all that helps. As far as the 51% attacks, Bitcoin actually, there was a mining pool in 2014 that hit 51%. That mining pool is now very, very tiny. In 2011, I believe Bitfury hit 51%. Hashing rate, and they didn't attack it. But the reason why it happens to smaller coins is because you can just move your hashing power. You're mining something else that is strong, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, there's a weaker coin with the same algorithm. All I have to do is flip a switch on my mining gear and go attack a smaller coin and scam it for millions of dollars, make a bunch of money, then move my hashing power back. Now, because there's nothing above Bitcoin in hashing power, that's why 51% attacking Bitcoin is very hard. 51% attacking Bcash is very, very easy, but the biggest miner is a Bcash fan, so that's not going to happen. Yeah, so that's kind of my view on it. And I think Bitcoin is significantly better than gold right now, is because I think gold's best property historically has been the ability to move your value cross-border. Like if things got really rough in your region,
I've tried crossing borders, but it's hard.
Right. World War I, World War II, but preferably before that, things get really bad, like in Rome, take your gold, you go to another end of the world, and with gold you can't do that. Metal detectors, technology, but with Bitcoin you could, because you can just keep it in your head. That's why I call it unconfiscatable. Your
mind wallet. Okay, with that, I think that's a good point to end in. It looks like Bitcoin's the last one standing. Bitcoin's the gold. And if you want to speculate, maybe play with the other altcoins.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.